take the next one. The question is about, I have an 8-year-old son, and should we be focusing more on velocity or throwing different pitches? My son was 8 years old last year, and how many times a week should he throw was the question. And you know, we had a tournament that was being played over Mother's Day or something, and I've always told my kids, when you're pitching, you don't need to throw the ball hard. You know, sometimes when you're out there, you feel good, you can throw the ball hard. Let's not focus on speed. Let's focus on throwing the ball over home plate. Whether it's high or low, let's focus on throwing it straight. So he pitched a game at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And the coach said, hey, is he okay to pitch? I said, yeah, he's okay to pitch later. So later in the day, he went out and he pitched 2 mornings. Then on Sunday, he pitched 2 mornings later in the day. And people said, wow, he's pitching 3 days in a row. I said, he's not pitching. He's throwing the ball. He wasn't getting a high leg kick and coming through and driving through the ball. He was picking up his leg and going like this. And he was throwing the ball over home plate. So to me, you know, and I asked him, how's your arm feel? He wasn't really necessarily pitching the ball. And I don't need to be teaching him to pitch the ball right now. I need him to throw the ball straight, start to understand some of the basic movements of the pitching mechanics. And that's another question, my next question I'll get to. But it's not about lifting up his leg and creating that momentum and trying to get more velocity, because I don't care about that right now. What I care about is he gets consistency with his arm action. He starts to understand how to use his lower body a little bit better, rotating his hips, maintaining his direction towards the plate. To me, that's the most important thing. So people thought, wow, this guy's a baseball guy. He's letting his kid pitch twice in the same day and then pitch the next day. Again, if he was out there really driving the ball and following through and pulling through the ball, I wouldn't have done that. But as I'm watching him throw, I'm saying he's not really pitching the ball. He's just throwing it over the plate. So when you're an 8-year-old kid, you don't have to worry about other pitches. Work on a 4-seam fastball. Make sure their thumb is underneath the ball. A lot of kids hold the ball off to the side. Make sure the rotation is consistent. That's the stuff that you want to work on, because that's the stuff as when they start to throw the ball harder, that's going to affect their elbow when they're coming around the ball and they're turning the ball inside too much. So we want to make sure that they're consistently through the ball, whether it's 4-seam or 2-seam, and that's the only pitch they need to worry about. And they want to throw them right down the middle of the home plate. You know, people think you want to throw to the corners. When you get a young kid, you put the catcher in the center of home plate. He's got 8.5 inches that way and 8.5 inches that way to make a mistake. So if he's aiming for the middle of the plate, it doesn't mean it's going to end up in the middle of the plate. But you're going to give your kid a much better chance at throwing strikes. So focus on throwing strikes, focus on throwing the ball with consistent rotation. Make sure they're following through. Make sure their arm action is nice and smooth. That's the only thing you should be worried about with kids up until 10 years old.
And the funny thing is, I'll always say, next time, you know, you hear somebody talking about, oh, well, I got to get my 9-year-old to hit his spots and change it, you know, change up their different pitches. And I'll say, do me a favor, come watch me throw batting practice to my team. I'm trying to throw it right down the middle every single time. See how many of those guys are ripping the ball all over the field every single time. If so, they're not doing it at that age. Now, as they get older and their hitting skill gets better, yeah, you got to move it around. But at the young ages, the chances of them hitting it every single time. Remember, at the other end, you have a hitter who's just as inexperienced as the pitcher. Put it right down the middle of the plate and make them have to try to hit it. It's not as easy as you think on the other end.